Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Friday edition of the Stokastic NHL Strategy Show, sponsored by BetMGM. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Joining me, as always, Slim Cliffy, and pretty good night last night for Slim Cliffy.
Yeah, I did have a pretty good night last night. Had a few banked the $20 3 max, the $3 3 max, the $12 single entry, some seconds and thirds, in other spots, won some tickets. Pretty good night. Went like 60x on my entries, which is, you really want those nights. I had a rough December, so this is a pretty good start to the calendar 2023 year for me. So, yeah, I had a pretty good night. There's also some pretty good nights in chat as well. Chuck Dynasty, I believe, took down the $7 3 max over on FanDuel. CPS had a bank of his own over on DraftKings. And I got a DM from Shockmain. He won the Fantasy Hockey World Championship qualifier last night. So he's going to the big dance. Said he watched the show and used St. Louis. Just as I did. And in fact, our screen share is working, thankfully, and I'll bring up what I went with here last night. So this is the lineup I had. By the end of it, it was St. Louis 1, Saros and Ekholm, broken Vancouver stack with Horvat and Pettersson and Kuzmenko. And this was not the lineup that I had right after the show. Cause usually I make my lineups after our show, after I've talked things through with you and kind of see where you stand. Cause I value your opinion quite a bit. And this wasn't what I had. My original lineup was full Vancouver 1. So take off Horvat, put in Miller, and a Philadelphia power play stack with Frost, JVR, Konechny, and Angelo.
Also would have been good.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that probably would have worked out well in my favor as well. And then after supper, after the show was done, lineups were made, I went and did a workout, had some supper, came and sat back down, and I thought of something that you had said on the show yesterday about Kyrou being better than Tarasenko, and I think that's pretty inarguable at this point. And what we were discussing in the Discord in a DM was like, if you have a bunch of injuries on the St. Louis side and there are only 3 notable forwards that are healthy, you probably want them to be Buchnevich, Thomas, and Kyrou. I think those are the 3 best offensive players that St. Louis has now. So at that point, I made the decision to change my lineup. And I changed it to St. Louis 1 with the old Edmonton 1. So I had McDavid and I had Hyman and I had Klim Kostin. So that was the lineup that I started the slate with. And then St. Louis had a pretty good effort in the early games, obviously, winning 5-3 in New Jersey. Jordan Kyrou had a goal and a block shot bonus. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Kyrou. Robert Thomas had 3 points. Buchnevich had 3 assists as well, so pretty good outing by them. And then we get the news at 9:30 my time, 8:30 Eastern, that Klim Kostin was moved off McDavid's line, and Yamamoto was jumping up to the top line with McDavid. And Yamamoto was $200 more expensive, and I only had $100 in wiggle room to move around, so I couldn't dig in with McDavid, Hyman, Yamamoto. So I had to change that lineup somehow. So I went back to a Vancouver lineup, and it was going between, Kuzmenko was going in because I needed a winger spot, and there's 3 centers from Vancouver. So it was Horvat, Pettersson, and Miller. I just decided to max out my salary, put in Horvat instead of Miller. It didn't really work out as Miller scored last night, but, them's the breaks, as they say. Wearing my Horvat jersey in representation of Horvat. So Vancouver had a pretty good game. Pettersson, a couple of assists with a shot bonus. Kuzmenko had a couple goals. Those guys got me over the line. But my lineup, single entry last night, my lineup went through 3 different iterations in about 6 hours. And I think that's kind of the value of doing this show, is we talked about how I'll take this off the screen now. We talked about how we liked the St. Louis top line last night, but might not necessarily get there in a single entry. And then I thought about it more and thought about what you said about Karu over Tarasenko. And eventually I was just thinking, you know what, let's just go with it. And then as soon as I saw Akira Schmid starting, that it wasn't going to be, any of their NHL goalies, that just really confirmed it for me. So I went with St. Louis 1. Then I had to late swap later. Everything kind of worked out. If I would have put in somebody like Fairbury, as you did, instead of Damon Severson, I probably would have tripled my winnings last night, which is always frustrating because I'm the guy that's playing Fairbury almost every time. He's at 25 or 2,600, but certainly not going to complain about a 60X night. Pretty good night for me. Really good night for Chuck Dynasty as well. Congrats to him. And a really good night for Shockmain heading to the Fantasy Hockey World Championships. Congrats to you guys. I would say the lesson is twofold. One, we generally say go with what your first instinct was, what your first build was for your lineup or whatever, but don't just get locked into it, right? Don't think, set my lineup at 3:00 Eastern and then that's it, unless something crazy happens in warmups. Like, you can always find out new information or consider things from a different angle that could be to your benefit, and that certainly happened with me St. Louis last night. And the other, always pay attention to lineup information once warm-up started 6:30 Eastern all through the night, because I might have been stuck. If I wasn't paying attention, I might have been stuck with McDavid, Hyman, and Costin. I don't think that would have got me there. So, the late swap worked in my favor, and hopefully we can do it again sometime soon, and I don't have to go through a month like I went through in December again.
Well, the good news is tonight's another night to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. McDavid had a couple of assists and one was shorthanded. Hyman had a goal on the shot bonus, but I don't think Slim Climmy did anything there. So I don't know. But we also have a 1999 super chat from the aforementioned Chuck Dynasty. Says, for the spicy chicken Sammy fun. Whew. Love me some spicy chicken sandwich.
Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly what I would use it for too. So we really appreciate your donation to the Spicy Chicken Fund. Congrats again on a really good night.
Yeah, man. Love to see subs winning. Also like to root for each other. It's nice, like I don't want to toot our own horns too much here, but it's nice to start the show saying that we had success instead of just being like, yeah, we got crushed, but blah, 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 blah. These people did really well. Yeah. It's nice to come in on that success. During that bubble season, it's like, well, we got nuked again, but 38 people in the Discord did well. But,
I mean, and that's going to happen a lot when we play single entry, but it's definitely nice to get on the board again. I think this is my second bank. I had one like the second or third day of the season, but I've been a slog since then. It's the way single entry goes. Let's hope we can kind of repeat that success pretty soon.
Yeah. How about the real MVP, though? UC Saros, 64 saves.
Unbelievable. And I was getting nervous because, I think they scored a couple goals in the first period. And I was like, oh, man, this is going to be like one of those games where it's like 5 goals in 33 saves or something like that. And I was like, we're just going to get screwed. And then they just couldn't score. And then they wouldn't stop shooting. And he just turned in one of the best regular season performances for a goaltender in recent memory.
Besides someone named Tugganut, who had 70 saves.
Yeah, he was our Ben Scrivens there from 2014 or 2015 or whatever it was when he had 50-some saves for Edmonton. So thank you, Mr. Saro.
Yeah, against I don't even remember, but we have a 6-gamer to get everyone back in the win column here. We have. I was joking about the Arizona Philly game yesterday being an absolute scene. We're back with another one of those scenes. Coyotes and Blackhawks, which we'll get to later. But before we get into the slate, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Very important that you hit that like button if you're here. Just smash the like button. It takes less than a second of your time, and it helps us out, us bring you guys more free shows throughout the season. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. And don't forget to sign up for the Stokastic Hall of Fame by changing your avatar on DraftKings and FanDuel. All you got to do is go to stokastic.com/avatar, download the avatar, change it on the fantasy sports sites. Place in the top 3 of a contest. Tweet to win Stokastic HOA. Why do I always say HOA? Because I live in an HOA and I pay an association fee. HOF. Or email us with your screenshot and you get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Also, you get a shout out on the Hall of Fame segment. So make sure to do that. Before we also get into the slate, we have a $100 super chat from Paul Siafi. I probably butchered that.
Yeah, that's Shockman.
That's Shockman.
Yeah, that's the guy that won the Fantasy Hockey World Championship qualifier.
Congrats to you. That was a really good lineup. Yeah, our pal Mr. G finished second, and you were clear by 40 points.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, he ran over that qualifier.
Yeah, I mean, like, I remember I qualified once by some miracle, and it was in the 300, and I had to sweat a late stat John Gibson assist change. So, like, being 40 points clear. Stress is still high, but not as high as if it was like 2 or 3 point lead. So congrats to you. Good luck in Denver. And hopefully we'll see you there.
Yeah, and thanks a lot for the super chat. We really appreciate you watching. Yeah, we appreciate you watching, and that's even more spicy chicken sandwiches coming our way.
Which I don't need, but I will have.
Yeah, I'll take every single one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bulking season in the wintertime. No one says you're supposed to eat healthy while bulking, but nothing 4 spicy chicken sandwiches for dinner.
I think they call that dirty bulking. It's just fine. It's fine.
Yeah. It's fine. Add some bacon. What? Okay. Let's get into this slate. I actually like this 6-gamer a lot. The flowchart boys are back, which we'll get into later as well. There's a nice array of choices here on this slate, so let's get into it. Nashville Predators with a 2.9 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 3.5 total. UC Saros went absolutely ham last night. He's probably still on some IV fluids after that performance, so it's probably going to be Kevin Lankinen. Capitals also played last night with Darcy Kemper, so it's probably going to be Charlie Lindgren. So Caps have a pretty big total here, and without Saros in net, Lankinen has been pretty good this season, which is a bit surprising, but they still struggle on the penalty kill. Capitals got there on the power. They had 2 power plays last night, and they converted both very quickly against the Blue Jackets. Predators give up a ton of shots on the power play. So you look at the ownership here, and it's not surprising seeing close to 20% on the top line. You get Kuznetsov and Ovechkin on that top line, but this is a very, very good special teams matchup. That other line as well, I think it's the second line. I don't even know what it's called. Oshie, Strome, and Milano. You get 2 guys on the top power play there as well. If you can't spend, it does feel bad putting in the Caps lineup without Ovechkin. So I guess you could take Milano off and pay up for Ovechkin there to make a pretty expensive power play stack. But I again, this is 3 slates in a row. I like the Capitals. I like going back to the Caps here. Nashville 2.9 total is actually a bit higher than I thought it was going to be. I guess. Where do you go here? Do you go back to Glass Niederreiter? Because you would think that Hathaway line is going to get Parson and Forsberg. So I guess you go back to Glass Niederreiter. And they're not very expensive. They can be used as a filler. I'm just not excited about the Predators despite the total.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see that total as well. There are some big road totals, which we probably should say. Florida's at 3.5, Tampa's over 3, Arizona's at 3, San Jose's at 3.5. So relatively speaking, this is low for this slate, but it is high for what I was expecting from Nashville, especially with how good Washington has been. Their last 20 games or so, top 5 in the NHL in expected goal share. They're genuinely playing one of the top teams in the league and have been for, going back to November, basically. The one note about the Caps is I'm worried about the lineup. Both Nick Backstrom and Tom Wilson look like they're set to return this weekend for Washington. The beat writer said yesterday I believe it was Samantha Pell, saying that they're traveling with the team, both Wilson and Backstrom. Neither have played this year. Backstrom hip surgery, I believe it was, and then Wilson with his torn ACL or MCL or whatever it was, and his knee surgery. They each haven't played yet this year. Now Washington has 2 home games this weekend. There's this one at home to Nashville, and then Sunday at home to Columbus. Neither of those games are particularly difficult, so you could easily see them coming in for a game on Sunday against Washington or against Columbus. But either Backstrom or Wilson or both could be back in the lineup here tonight, and that would change a lot that would change the lineups a lot on the Washington side. Like I think Dylan Strome would probably move to the wing, right? Sonny Milano would probably get booted out of the top 6. Connor Sheary might get booted out of the top 6 unless they put Wilson on the third line. So we're going to have to see what warmups look like. I'll say this, like, I know that, we don't like chasing players coming off, injuries or whatever, but Backstrom is 3,600 on DraftKings. Wilson is 3,300. Backstrom, if he's in the lineup, is sure to play on the top power play unit. And if you look at the Washington power play over the last few years, their goal scoring goes down like 35% without Backstrom in the lineup. He is a big, big impact factor. Like having both him and Oshie on the top power play with Ovechkin and I'm assuming Kuznetsov would bring them closer back to their former glory. Of course, they'd still need John Carlson to get back whenever he gets back, and he's out till then. Gustafsson can fill in admirably till then. But Backstrom in or out might change how I look at this game. And I know, it'd be his first game back, not playing all season. Maybe he's a little bit rusty, but I'd imagine there'd be pretty low ownership on them if they're announced only in at warmups, right? Like if Ovechkin comes in at 20%, I could see Backstrom easily under 10%, maybe under 5%, depending on which contest you're in, if it's a late announcement. So I would definitely be paying attention to warmups. Like Nashville's just not a good defensive team. We saw that against Carolina yesterday. They just needed an unbelievable performance from UC Saros to win that one. Bottom half dozen of the league by shots against and expected goals against, basically no matter what strength you look at. So, I really do like the Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, Sheary line here, but they are coming in with a ton of ownership. Sheary, he has been playing well. That's the thing. Like I would want to say, leave him off and put on Oshie, which I think you can because it is a good power play spot. But Sheary has 16 points in his last 17 games going back to the start of December. Like he's been productive. So, I might be tempted to leave him on even. But I really do like that top line. They are going to go into the depth. I don't think the matchups really matter here. Forsberg and Sissons together, not a huge sample, but at 66 shot attempts against per 60 minutes, like that's really, really high. Even the Niederreiter line is at 3.4 expected goals against with Michael Granlund there. That's not good, obviously. I'm not really worried about any of the matchups on the Nashville side. I do like Washington 1. I would say we just have to really pay close attention to warmups here because what we're showing in the lineup builder and what is actually skating at 6:30 Eastern could be completely different, and it would be a lot cheaper. Like Backstrom is over $3,000 cheaper than $2,000 cheaper than Kuznetsov on DraftKings. It would change a lot about the slate. So I guess we'll have to see at warmups, but Nashville's still just really porous defensively, 3.5 times shorthanded per game. That's well above the league average. Washington drawing about league average power plays per game. So it is Washington 1 here. But again, we do have to see what warmups look like. If anything on the Nashville side, I agree with you. It's Glass, Niederreiter, and Granlund. I think they make a reasonable filler stack for how cheap they are, right? You can stack Glass and Niederreiter for under $6K, and that can help you get to a massive Tampa Bay stack or a massive Florida stack or something like that. But the problem is like there aren't a ton of super expensive options on this slate. So like, what are you really stacking them with? You know what I mean? Unless you're just paying up big on the blue line. So if anything, it's Granlund, Glass, Niederreiter, especially where they're all in the same power play unit together. But I think it's a pretty tough matchup back-to-back on the road going into Washington, and it's the Caps top line I like the best.
Yeah, and I think if Backstrom and Tom Wilson play, they're going to leave that top line alone. I think Connor Sheary's going to stay there because they wanted Connor Brown to stay there when everyone was healthy, and Connor Brown obviously tore his ACL. I think Sheary stays there. I think you might end up seeing like a second line of Backstrom, Wilson, and Oshie, moving the third line to like, I don't know, Strome, Marcus Johansson, and Sonny Milano. And then you might actually see like Mantha come out of the lineup or something like that. But that's just conjecture. Also, like, I don't know if you guys are futures bettors, but I've seen the Capitals as wide as 75-1 to win the cup right now. Not saying they're going to win the cup, but I don't think they should be 75-1. You can get a cash out option later on that, but it seems wide. They've been playing really, really well over the past few weeks. And again,
last 19 games, they're third in the league in expected goal share. The only teams above them are Carolina and Toronto. I think what's working against Washington as far as the futures bet, and I agree with you, I think 75-1 would be pretty good bet. It's the conference, right?
Yeah.
It's like if Washington finishes second in their conference or whatever, or third in their conference, it's like, congratulations. It's like you have to play Pittsburgh, and then you probably have to play Carolina, and then you probably have to play one of like Tampa and Boston. Like that's your route just to get to the cup.
Yeah.
It's a slog.
Yeah. But the plan there for a 75-1 bet is them like making the playoffs as like a 3 seed or whatever and cashing out on it. But
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. But yeah, as we mentioned yesterday, we're going to get to D-men at the end so we can give you more analysis on the game. So we'll get to the defensemen at the end. So let's move on to the next game. Florida Panthers with a 3.5 total heading into Detroit. The Red Wings have a 3 total. Sergei Bobrovsky, Ville Husso confirmed. Panthers going back with Verhaeghe, Barkov, Kachuk, Reinhart, Bennett, E2D2, Luosterainen. Looks like Anton Lundell with Colin White and Nick Cousins on the third line. Wings still going with whatever they're going with. Like Robbie Fabry is back, but he's still on a line with Oscar Sundqvist and Pia Suter, which actually isn't bad for a filler, but I don't think it's necessary on this slate. Michael Rasmussen's still up on that top line, which is just a circus, but like this is a spot where you have to confirm it. Like the Panthers have been, chaotic defensively. Bobrovsky has been awful. So, like, as much as I love the Florida top line, and I do, and they're coming in with fairly low ownership, probably because they're super expensive, I think you have to consider the Wings top line here. The Wings, like, have to consider it. They're coming in higher projected, owned-wise, than the Florida top line, just because they're fully correlated. Panthers been a mess. They're cheaper. But, like, push comes to shove, I'm playing Florida 1 here. But, like, as much as I hate it, I think Detroit 1's a really good play tonight.
Yeah, I think I hate it too.
Yeah.
I think Detroit's top line's definitely in play here. We're starting to get to a relatively meaningful sample with them. They're up over 60 minutes together. 3.5 expected goals for, only 2 against, 3.8 actual goals per 60 minutes. All playing about 17, 18 minutes, all on the same power play unit, as you mentioned. Those are pretty good numbers. And I was looking at their recent schedule. It hasn't been like super brutal, but their last 6 games are Washington, Tampa, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, and then Buffalo and Ottawa. Like there are some pretty tough teams in there, and they've still been playing extremely well. And that includes, being used as the shutdown line at home. Like there have been different lines used for Detroit as a shutdown line this year. They're using their third line earlier in the year. Now it's Larkin, Perron, and Rasmussen, which means they're going to be going into that Florida top line. And the Florida top line, by expected goals against, below average defensively on the season, 2.8 expected goals against. I think the league average is around 2.6, maybe a little bit less than that. So, a fair bit worse than the league average. They're getting really good goaltending behind them in their sample together. That's what's kind of saving Florida 1's goals against numbers. And I'll get to Florida in a second because I do like them as well. But it's not a terrible matchup for Detroit. And Florida takes a boatload of penalties. They're at 3.8 times shorthanded per game. It's second in the league behind only Arizona. So, that is another check mark in the direction of Detroit. Florida doesn't have a terrible penalty kill or anything, but it hasn't been super elite either. Middle of the pack by shots against since Thanksgiving. Much worse than that by goals against, like in the bottom 10, close to Montreal and Los Angeles. So I think I'm with you. There are real reasons to play the Detroit top line today, and it's not just because they're a relatively cheap top line. It's not a bad matchup at 5-on-5. It's a good matchup on the power play. I do like Detroit 1. They are coming with a fair bit of ownership, but they've been playing well, and it's a good matchup. So I don't think you can ignore them. They're at least in consideration for one of those mid-priced lines. Now, the second and third lines, I'm not as super hip to. I don't think this will surprise anybody, but Berggren and Kopp in a limited small sample, a little over 40 minutes, only a 45% shot attempt share. Kopp and Raymond have generally played pretty poorly together this season. Lucas Raymond, I was going back to December 1st, 19 shots in his last 14 games. Like, that is absolutely awful shot production. Like, you definitely need him to get on the score sheet. I wouldn't say definitely, but he's very unlikely to get there with 7 shots in a couple blocks or something like that, right? Like, you're definitely going to need him to score. Now he can, because he's on the top power play unit as well. But they're just a really bad team at 5-on-5. The Florida second line, the Bennett Luosterainen line, has been really good, even without Matthew Tkachuk. Only 2.2 expected goals against per 60 minutes. So I think it could be a pretty tough matchup for the Detroit second line. Suter and Sundqvist, as good as Suter is playing, he's not good enough to drag Sundqvist to respectability. They're a pretty bad line. So I'm not in on Detroit 3 either. I think on the wing side is Detroit 1 or bust. But the Florida top line, I wrote about them in the picks article today. I wrote about them as one of the stacks. I'll bring it up on the screen. Free to read over at Stokastic.com. Just head on over to the NHL section. You don't need a membership to read it. 4.9 expected goals, 4.9 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Detroit penalty kill, 24th by shots against and 30th by goals against since Thanksgiving. So it's a good power play matchup for Florida as well. I think of all the really expensive stacks we have on the slate today, it's the Florida top line that I like the best. I don't even think you have to take off Verhaeghe and put in Reinhart or something for power play stacking purposes. Reinhart's not been the same guy he was last year. Only has 21 shots in his last 10 games. Like, you can do it. I think it's fine, but it's certainly not necessary. Florida 1, far and away, is the line I like the best here, but I don't think we can just ignore Detroit's top line either. This is not a bad matchup for them.
Yeah, you look at the Detroit bottom 6. You got guys like Robbie Fabry, Dominique Kubalik, and you end up with Michael Rasmussen on the top line, top power play. Like, the ghost of Jeff Blashill still calling the shots in Detroit, it seems like. But
oof, that's tough.
Sick burn. Turn it on high, Reggie. I want to burn. Anyway, as we mentioned off the top, we are sponsored by BetMGM. We can get you a $1,000 risk-free bet and 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum when you sign up, make a deposit, and make your first paid wager at BetMGM. Obviously, if your risk-free bet loses, a refund will be issued in site credit. You have to follow all the steps, including having a Stokastic membership, which you can sign up for free if you don't have one, and then making a BetMGM sportsbook account. I have a bet for you guys, which I got at OddsShopper, which is a great tool for prop betting or any kind of betting, really. You can shop lines. So if you don't have a OddsShopper account, you should sign up. It's free to sign up at oddshoppers.com. There are premium add-ons, but most of the stuff is free. My bet today is Matthew Tkachuk over 0.5 power play points at plus 125. We like the plus money props. So yeah, you can do that risk-free if you sign up with BetMGM, up to $1,000 if you want. If you want to find your own bet, go to OddsShopper, use your player compare tool, player prop tool, this and that, and get your own bet, or you can tail mine. The most important thing is you click the link in the description, you follow all the steps. We get credit, you get free money, you get Stokastic Plus Platinum for free. Win, win, win.
Yep.
Let's move on to the next game. Tampa Bay Lightning heading into Winnipeg. Tampa has a 3.1 total. The Jets have a 2.9 total. It says Vasilevsky's probable. He has been battling an illness. And there's like John Cooper's awful for goalie news, so we won't know anything.
Yeah, they said game time decision officially.
Yeah,
so
that could mean anything.
It could be anything between he's starting and he's not even with the team on the road trip.
He's probably in Tampa right now, like at like a CC's pizza buffet, and we're just talking about it. Like he might play. Connor Hellebuck is confirmed for the Jets. Looks like Blake Wheeler, Cole Perfidi, and Nikolai Ehlers back in the lineup tonight. It's going to be Cole Perfidi with Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler. Second line, Kyle Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Nikolai Ehlers. The flowchart boys are back in town, and this is a tough matchup, which you know what the flowchart says. You play them. Which line you liking here? Because I know before Ehlers came back and the top line of Scheifele, Wheeler, and Perfidi was together, you really like that line. Now you have a little bit more of a decision to make. This is 3 and 4 for Tampa, and if Vasilevsky's out, it'll be 3 and 4 for Brian Elliott. So I don't know. I like the Winnipeg side. Which line you liking?
So I think in this game we kind of have to talk about the line matching a little bit. I was looking at from the very start of the season because Ehlers has only played 2 games this year. He's been out since mid-October. They hosted the New York Rangers, and at that time Ehlers was playing with Connor and Scheifele, and they went out on the top against the top line as Zibanejad and Kreider. However, Winnipeg has been using their third line quite a bit this year as a shutdown line. I don't know what's going to happen here. Now, I assume that Scheifele, Wheeler, and Perfidi do not get a shutdown matchup. I don't think you
hope not.
I don't think I mean, remember with Winnipeg's third line getting shutdown matchups, when Minnesota was in town, that meant that the Scheifele line was going out against Joel Eriksson Ek in the shutdown line for Minnesota. I mean,
Rick Bowness is the brightest bulb.
Yeah, sometimes those things just happen. But the reason I bring that up is because if the Winnipeg top line or the Winnipeg third line, takes the top line matchups, that frees up the second and third lines against the depth. And I was looking at very small sample numbers for Cirelli and Stamkos this year. They're at just over 40 minutes played together. They're getting run over. 48 shot attempts for, 73 against per 60 minutes, 40% of the shot attempt share. Now, you don't want to rely on just 40 minutes. So I was looking at last year. Cirelli and Stamkos really struggled to generate offense when they were on the ice together last year at 5-on-5. 2.3 expected goals for, 2.7 actual goals for. I think for last season, those are right around league average numbers. Like, that's not very good. Now, they were much better defensively last year. So, take that into consideration. But I do think this is a situation where Connor Dubois and Ehlers might get some pretty soft in-game matchups. And with all 3 of those guys expected to skate on the top power play unit together with Scheifele, I think it's Connor Dubois Ehlers that I would lean to. 260 minutes together, including the last couple seasons. Obviously, 2.9 expected goals for, 2.3 against. So they're really carrying the play when they're on the ice. 3.6 actual goals per 60 minutes, which is a really good number for a sample over 250 minutes together. Ehlers is priced very cheap. Like, if you look at his production over the last few years, the one thing that you and I have always said, just give him the top power play minutes and he's a 90-point winger all of a sudden. And if you basically just transfer Blake Wheeler's power play production over the last few years to Nikolai Ehlers, he's over a point per game player, probably capable of landing 3.5 shots per game. Like, he would be, just an absolute stud in fantasy, and he'd be considerably more expensive than he is right now. I think he's $6,600 on DraftKings and only $5,700 on FanDuel. Like, it wouldn't shock me in a month's time if he's like $8K on DraftKings and, $8,500 on FanDuel or something like that. You know what I mean? If they play up to the way they're capable. So with the way they played and likely getting second and third line matchups, not going out against the Tampa top line, I think it is Dubois, Connor, and Ehlers that I like the best in this game. They're coming in with a fair bit of ownership, which I think is right. Home matchup, perfectly correlated on the power play. Might not be seeing Vasilevsky. We won't know until warm-ups. No Victor Hedman for Tampa Bay either. And though he struggled a little bit defensively this year, he's still pretty good offensively. He can help them move the puck out of the zone. So I do like Connor Dubois Ehlers, but I'm kind of in that situation where I don't. It's not quite Alex Ovechkin, but it's like, how do you make a Winnipeg stack and leave Mark Scheifele off, right? Like, he plays all the important power play minutes. He plays, at the end of the game. He might be the ice time leader for them amongst all their forwards, despite not playing with, Connor and Ehlers and those guys. So I don't even hate taking out Dubois and putting in Scheifele and make it more of a power play stack. But at the very least, I do like Connor, Ehlers, and Dubois in this matchup. They're certainly in play for me. People want to wait until Nikolai Ehlers to see how he plays or if he's rusty or whatever. I think that's fine, but I think you might probably want to get it on the ground floor before his price starts rising, because I think there's a good chance it could over the next few weeks. Perfidi, Wheeler, Dubois have actually been playing well together. 3.3 expected goals for, 3.6 actual goals for, and 150 minutes together this year. I think they're perfectly fine to go to as well, and they're coming in considerably lower owned. They're a fair bit cheaper. I just worry about ice time for Perfidi now that they have a full lineup. Is he going to play like 14 minutes or something like that? Wheeler not on the top power play unit. I think they're perfectly fine to play, but in a nutshell, it would be the Winnipeg top line. I might consider putting in Scheifele to make it a power play stack. On the Tampa side, man, the leverage is really tempting. I'll bring up our top stacks tool real quick. Tampa Bay top line, number one by leverage, expected 27% ownership or thereabout, or top two stack probability, or thereabouts, only 2 to 3% ownership. It makes sense. This is a very tough matchup. For this reason is that Winnipeg doesn't take penalties, 2.7 times shorthanded per game. I think that's the third fewest in the league, and a really, really good penalty kill on top of that. And you're probably facing Connor Hellebuck as well. Like, it's just very, very tough to break through. With how expensive they are, they're over 24,000 on DraftKings. They're almost 28,000 on FanDuel. Like, on FanDuel, you're spending over half your cap on them. I think it's hard to three-man stack here. If there's a super cheap stack or you want to play a bunch of cheap one-offs or something like that, I think that's fine. I just think, considering the matchup, even with that expected very low ownership, it's just tough to get to Tampa here. So it would be the Winnipeg top line I like the best, Winnipeg 1/Winnipeg power play.
Yeah, the only way I'd play Tampa tonight is because of the leverage. Like, they're getting almost no ownership. There's a lot of things going against them here. This is 3 and 4 games on the road. This is a getaway game. They don't play again until Tuesday at home. They're banged up. Hedman left to go. I think his wife's having a baby. Vasilevsky's been sick. They're getting Winnipeg fully healthy with Hellebuck in net. So, like, if you're 150 maxing, get over the field on Tampa 1 here. It's not going to be very difficult. And I think that's a good play because they are an elite line. Mm-hmm. It's just not a great spot. They do have a fairly high road total. I don't know, like 3 and 4 on the road. That is the biggest worry point here. And if it is Elliott in net tonight, they could fall behind here. You could see some line swapping. Like, I don't know. If I was 20 maxing, maybe I'd have 1 or 2 of 20 to get way over the field there, but it's really about it. And with Hedman out, like, yeah, he's not the Hedman he was years ago, but like, that just makes their depth even worse on the blue line because someone else is going to have to move up. You're going to see, like, I don't know, Hayden Fleury in the lineup. You're going to see Nick Perbix getting more minutes, Ian Cole getting more minutes, Cal Foote getting minutes. You know what I mean? It's just going to have like a trickle-down effect, and I just think this is a Winnipeg game.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So let's move on to the main event of the evening, shall we? Arizona Coyotes with a 3 total heading into Chicago. The Blackhawks also have a 3 total. Connor Ingram against Alex Stalock. If this game was going on the ECHL, no one would bat an eye. No Patty Kane for the Hawks tonight. He is out. Like, the Arizona top line here is getting double-digit ownership. It's actually a pretty good matchup here for the Coyotes. You were talking about Alex Stalock in Discord about his goals against or expected goals against numbers or saves above expected. I don't even remember. It was a good point though because of who he's in his company. It's just really hard to get anything going here for the Blackhawks. Like, I don't think I'd full stack anything. This is a very good power play spot. So if like without Patty Kane, are they even going to be anything decent on the power play? Like Domi, Taves, Radish on the power play. Like Seth Jones maybe, but he's 6,200. Like, I don't know. I don't think I'd full stack anything on one side. Kind of like the analysis we had yesterday with the Flyers, like the one off Konechny or the Frost JVR. Like on both sides here, don't know if I'd full stack anything, but I definitely have to consider one offing or two manning a couple pieces.
Yeah, things have definitely changed since I wrote my article this morning. I had Max Domi in the picks article, but I did say, watch for lineup news because Kane and Athanasiou didn't skate yesterday. Kane is out. Takes Domi's best playmaker or Chicago's best playmaker easily out of the lineup. And, Kane certainly hasn't had the season that we typically expect from him. But he's still helping them generate goals on the power play. And that's what I noted in that picks article is that the Chicago power play has actually been reasonably good this year. 9.3 goals per 60 minutes. I think that's pretty similar to like the Calgary Flames top power play unit, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not bad by any stretch. It's just, what does it look like without Patrick Kane there? That's kind of what worries me. Now, here's the thing is that the Arizona, obviously, as we talked about yesterday, Arizona is the most penalized team in the league by far, and they also have an absolutely awful penalty kill. So it is a really good spot for that Chicago power play. It's just, what does that power play look like with Patrick Kane in the press box? That's just kind of the only thing that worries me here. I don't know what that, they had Reese Johnson on the top line instead of Kane in practice yesterday. So it's like, if it's Athanasiou, Max Domi, and Reese Johnson, like, am I playing that line? I don't think so. The Taves and Radish line has honestly not been bad. Like Taves and Radish playing with Tyler, when they were playing with Tyler Johnson, about break even by expected goal share, which feels like a miracle on this Chicago Blackhawks roster, and actually outscoring the Kane, Taves, Athanasiou line on a per minute basis. So, yeah, I don't really want to play Chicago, but it's not a terrible matchup. They're going to go up against the Arizona top line, which has been pretty bad defensively this season in their own right. Taves and Radish are both going to be on the top power play unit. Like, I think I'm definitely off of the Chicago top line, whatever it looks like in warm up. I think I'm getting to maybe some Taves Radish two-mans, which are relatively inexpensive. I think Tyler Johnson might take the top power play role with Kane out, and that might get the Chicago second line perfect power play correlation. That's kind of a guess on my part, but that's just kind of what I'm thinking here. So if I needed like a cheap fillery type stack, Taves and Radish and Johnson, I think are fine considering the matchup, short slate, those types of things. I do think it's the Arizona side that I have more interest in though. In particular, their power play. Barrett Hayton, I'll mention this. Travis Boyd has 4 points in his last 19 games with Arizona, and he's been playing on the top line with Keller and Schmaltz pretty much the entire time. He is literally just a guy. He is Alex Wenberg. I didn't think Wenberg scored yesterday, so congrats to him. Probably not the best example in that sense then, but I think you can leave off Boyd and put in Hayton. He's on the top power play unit, has been playing more minutes because of it. Chicago has a terrible penalty kill, just like Arizona. So I think you can do like a Schmaltz, Keller, Hayton stack if you're worried about, a lot of high ownership with Travis Boyd or whatever. That's kind of where I would go on the Arizona side. Hayton is cheaper than Boyd by $800. So, off the top of my head, I think you're paying under $13K for a Keller, Schmaltz, Hayton line. So that's kind of where I would go on the Arizona side. Put in Boyd, take him out, do what you want, but it's Keller and Schmaltz especially that I would lean to. And I don't hate the Taves line, but I think I would stick with the Arizona side.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be getting to any Chicago, despite Arizona being back-to-back on the road with Connor Ingram, and that is just like I think the Hawks are the worst team in the NHL. Like, we were expecting the Coyotes to be the worst team in the NHL, but I don't think – I think it's the Hawks. Like, their roster is just atrocious. I can't even say it. That's how bad it is.
I mean, when you trade Kirby Dach and Alex DeBrincat and then let Dylan Strome walk for free, I think you're trying to make yourself bad. I think that was kind of the point.
Yeah. But let's give Seth Jones 12 years, $468 million. Anyway, we are moving on. And we have an NHL 5-day free trial, risk-free trial offer for you. You get got to click the link in the description. It'll get you free access to 5 days. Now we are Friday. It will take you into next week. You get projections, ownership, top stacks, rankings, everything you need. That is the top stacks tool. Oh, that is
this is the top stack.
Those are projections. That is the top stacks tool. We have the lineup builder, which we build lineups in. But this is how we get through the show. This has everything you need. It has, lines, projection, line projection, ownership projection. You can build a lineup. You can export the lineup. 5 days free, all of our tools. And you get the most invaluable thing, which you can't put a dollar price on, is our Discord. It gets you all that late news. You get you a bunch of sharp minds, some fun banter, some betting talk. So, I mean, just click the link in the description, sign up, head into the Discord, say you came from Discord. I'll give you a hug. I'll send you a slice of pizza. I don't know. I'll throw a pizza in the air. I don't know. I can do that from time to time. Check that out. 2 games left, 10 minutes left in the show. Plenty of time. New York Islanders with a 2.3 total, which is like over 20% lower than the Coyotes total. Heading into Calgary, the Flames have a 3.3 total. Varlamov, Jacob Markstrom probable. Who knows what the Islanders' lines are going to be like? They kind of put their lines into a blender yesterday after getting just obliterated by the Oilers, which is embarrassing. I don't know what I want to do with the Islanders lines real quick with the way they are. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think there's anything there. Maybe I'll one off a Barzell, maybe I'll one off a Nelson, but I'm not prioritizing them by any means on this slate. On the Flame side, like, the Kadri Huberdeau line's getting the most ownership, and that is kind of meh to me. So that makes me move to the Toffoli, Lindholm, Dubé line. They've been my favorite line in these new line iterations. I think they're the play where I would play them on the Flame side. Also, I like the Backlund, Mangiapane, Coleman line. If you want to play Kadri Huberdeau, I think that's fine. I just think they're getting a little bit more ownership than I want playing with Lucic, so I would defer to Toffoli, Lindholm, Dubé.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to spend much time on the Islanders here. I think, as weird as it is to say, on a slate with Arizona, Chicago, and Anaheim, the Islanders are the one team where I'm just, at least for the forwards, I'm like, no, I'll just pass. This is, for the Islanders, this is back-to-back on the road. As you said, they played last night in Edmonton. This is also 4th game in 6 nights on the road, playing their first game on New Year's Day. And no Sorokin in net. These lines are just a disaster, as you mentioned. I mean, I guess like Fasching, Nelson, and Lee are all in the same power play unit. But do I 4-6 on the road, going up against one of the best penalty kills in the league in the Calgary Flames. Like, do I want to go in that direction? I don't think so. If you're playing under 50 lineups, you consider every team and every line, or at least all top 3 lines. For me, single entry, I'm just not playing the Islanders here. The Calgary side is what's interesting to me. Lindholm, Toffoli, and Dylan Dubé is what I wrote up in the picks article. For the first 2 months of the season, the problem with Calgary was generating shots but not generating quality. Over the last 9 games since these new combos got put together, it's been a different story. Like, this top line, 3.5 expected goals per 60 minutes, approaching 100 minutes together now. They've been really, really good, scoring 5.7 actual goals per 60 minutes. Tyler Toffoli's near 3 shots per game since this line got put together. Now, the issue is ice time. Yeah. Since they went through these new line combinations, everybody's been kind of smushed towards the middle. So, maybe they only play like between 16 and 18 minutes, but, I think they can get there against an Islanders team that's probably going to be pretty tired tonight, and likely with Semyon Varlamov in net. They've just been excellent for Calgary. As you mentioned, they're coming in with lower ownership than the Milan Lucic line. I think that kind of says all you really need to here. So Toffoli, Lindholm, Dubé is what I like best. Backlund, Mangiapane, and Coleman is kind of interesting here because they'll go up against that Barzal-Cizikas line. Barzal-Cizikas just don't have good defensive numbers. They have good offensive numbers together, but bad defensive numbers. I don't think that's very surprising. So it's not a bad matchup for that Calgary third line. I don't know if I'd full stack him, but like a Mangiapane Backlund or a Coleman Backlund or something like that, I think is perfectly fine. But it's Toffoli, Lindholm, Dubé I like the best in this game, and it's not particularly close for me.
Yeah. I mean, the ice time's kind of baked into their price, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and projections too.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, you get the 2 guys on the top power play. Dubé's under 4K. He's kind of like that guy in the Mighty Ducks who has to learn how to stop, and he keeps crashing into the soda cans. Like, that's how, I don't know. That's how to describe Dubé. Like, he's just a maniac on the ice. Let's get to the last game of the night. San Jose, like, we're going to stay up late for this game, aren't we? San Jose Sharks with a 3.5 total heading into Anaheim. The Ducks have a 3 total. Capo Kakinen and Anthony Stolarz are confirmed. If Gibson was in that, I kind of wanted to play Gibson just because he's been playing really well lately. I kind of like Anthony Stolarz. He's a Jersey boy, but I don't know. I wish Hurdle was with Meyer. It's Couture, Meyer, Barabanov, and that top line. If it was Hurdle, I'd probably
it is Hurdle.
Oh, it is Hurdle. Yeah. Oh, I see that, and they have a massive projection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Sharks top line is, as I like to say from time to time, peak nitrous. I also like the McTavish, Henriques, Terry line. Mason McTavish, if you don't know, he was a very high draft pick. He was the favorite for the Calder Trophy going into the season. He was kind of down in the bottom 6, but now he's getting top power play. He's getting the best line mates possible with Henrique and Terry. I really do like that line as well. I'm not really sure how the Ducks match up at home.
Last game, when they had this lineup configuration, they used the Silverberg line more in a shutdown role.
Yeah, so like you're going to see McTavish go out against LeBanc or like Bonino, which is the Sharks' depth is just lackluster. If you want to go to the Strome, Vetrano, Zegras line, like I guess that's fine, but they're getting about the same ownership as the McTavish line, and Terry's by far the guy. Like, if I'm going to play a Duck stack, I want Terry there, and McTavish has been playing really well. If you want a one-off Zegras, that's fine, but like Vetrano, Strome, like Vetrano shoots and Strome is just kind of there. So like I think I would just default to the McTavish, Henrique, Terry line.
Yeah, and I think the matchups matter too, because if that Anaheim third line goes out against Meyer and Hurdle, that leaves the Mason, McTavish, Troy Terry line to go out against San Jose 2. And San Jose 2 has been way worse defensively than the top line. 2.9 expected goals against, 3.7 actual goals against per 60 minutes this year. Yeah, a perfectly correlated Ducks line is really kind of tickling my fancy here. Especially where you said like they're not coming in with insane ownership. They're over leveraged a little bit, but 12 to 13% for a perfectly correlated line at home against the Sharks. Don't think that's really that bad on a 6-game slate. So, Terry, Henrique, and McTavish is the direction I would look. Zegras and Vetrano just have hilariously bad defensive numbers together this year. I don't think, I'm not going to play San Jose 3 or whatever because of the matchup, but I think that it's just kind of notable that they're like near the worst defensive line in the league. So not much interest in Anaheim too for me. It's Terry, Zegras, McTavish. I agree. If you want to, take off McTavish and put in Zegras or something like that, I think that's perfectly acceptable to do. But it's the line with Troy Terry I want. He's been their best playmaker this year. He has their best, underlying stats, all that stuff. On the San Jose side, it's Meyer, Hurdle, Bank. I think they might be my favorite line on the slate now that Gibson's not starting. Like, you're right. Like, Stolarz he's not a bad goalie, but he's not John Gibson. This San Jose top line's been excellent this year. 3.2 expected goals for, 3.7 actual goals per 60 minutes. The Anaheim penalty kill is awful. You get 2 out of the 3 players on that top PP unit. Hurdle's been better next to Meyer than anybody else. I don't think that should be surprising. Like I said, I think San Jose they're going to come in really highly owned. Like, we have them over 20% ownership on DraftKings, and I think that sounds right. But I think they're also my favorite line on the slate here tonight.
Yeah. Looks like it's a late night.
Yeah.
And we have a show tomorrow morning, which is going to be great. Nothing a couple energy drinks can't fix on Saturday morning. But coming up right after us, we have the No House Advantage Friday NFL show at 3 p.m. with Etan and Jeff. And then we have the No House Advantage Friday NBA show with Emac and Gundacker right after that at 3:30. So if you play on No House Advantage, stick around for the next 2 shows. They're for you. There are 125 of you in here. Please smash that like button. Real quickly, we'll get to some D-man goalies in our hat trick pick. Just real quick, I'll give you a couple guys. Like, I really like Jacob Chychrun tonight at 7,100. Philip Hronek for the Detroit Red Wings practice on the top power play unit this morning. He's 4,600 on DraftKings. Couple punts go back to Martin Fairvary at 2,600. Don't mind Nick Jensen at 3,200. Eric Chernak at 2,900 with Hedman out. Of course, Brennan Dillon on the Jets.
Of course. Chychrun was one of the expensive defensemen I was looking at, Erik Karlsson being the other. It's just a tremendous matchup against Anaheim. For the mid-price guys, I wrote up Noah Hannafin. I think that's a good matchup with the Islanders probably being pretty tired tonight, and his price is under $5K on DraftKings. Also wrote up Gustav Forsling for Florida. He's really, really good at 5-on-5. He's been outproducing Aaron Ekblad this year on a per-game basis, at least on DraftKings. I don't mind Shane Gostisbehere if you don't want to pay up for Chychrun. For super cheap defensemen, 2 guys super cheap, Fairvary and Alex Carrier from Nashville, and I'll throw in Scott Mayfield from the Islanders. He may have to block about 10 shots here tonight.
Yes. Now let's get to the goalies. Looking through these goalies here, there are only about 3. There's actually only 3 I really want to play. So who are you liking in net?
None of them.
Yeah.
But Stolarz, I guess, because he's in instead of Gibson, he's fine to play. If you really want to ride the Lightning, Varlamov going up against the Flames here tonight, he's probably going to see a lot of rubber. Ville Husso for the same reason at home against Florida. I don't mind Alex Stalock at home against Arizona either. Hopefully he doesn't get lit up here tonight.
The 3 that I had circled are Jacob Markstrom. He's been playing better. Connor Hellebuck. And I don't even know what the other one was. I forget.
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does. It honestly does not matter. Real quickly, hat trick pick.
Thomas Hurdle going with some chalk.
I'm going in the same game. We're going Mason McTavish.
Oh, I like it. All right, let's see what happens in that game.
Yep. We will. We'll be up watching it.
Yeah.
For Cliffy, I am Josh. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, I believe. I will be caffeinated for sure. So good luck, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Good luck, everyone.